Okay, I'll go ahead and call this emergency city council meeting to order at 3 o'clock. Going to quorum check. We have all members of the council present. Citizens' comments?
We received none.
No citizens' comments today. Go right to item 4, which is what we're here for, discuss and consider 7th Memorial Declaration of Local, State, and Disaster due to public health emergency. I think all of y'all pretty well know what's happened since the last time we met. Some of the public may not know that the county judge today signed a affidavit to send to the governor saying that we only had 5 active cases in the county right now, which qualifies us under the rural counties that have 5 or less, to where those counties can go to a 50% occupancy or whatever in restaurants, museums, etc. So as of today, Hondo and the Medina County is under the 50% rule, which of course, like I say, affects some of the businesses. Our today declaration follows the governor's orders. It says in here 25%, I think, but it will automatically be 50. And other than following the governor's orders, as you know, we as a city can have orders within our declaration that affect our government facilities, and we can also do what we're doing here is recommending the wearing of masks. Moving on to the back page of the exhibit, I think the things that we've been talking about the most would be, first of all, the curfew, which we instituted several declarations back for both the daytime and the evening for children under 17. In addressing that particular item and visiting with our chief of police, his strong recommendation is that we continue with the curfew at least up to the 18th, which is when this particular declaration expires, which will give us a further idea about how the curfew is going to affect the number of cases that we reflect in the community, also the amount of gathering that takes place in the community. The other items that we talk about today.
What is the gathering?
Gathering is 10 or less.
Still 10 or less?
Still 10 or less. The other items that we'll be looking at today is, like I said, the paragraph has to do with recommending that people, I'll just read it. This declaration strongly recommends the use of cloth face coverings when visiting hospitals, medical, and veterinary clinics. It is strongly recommended that face masks also be used by restaurant workers as well as employees of all essential businesses that have face-to-face contact with the public, including grocery stores. It's also strongly recommended that a face mask be used whenever a person leaves their home or essential business. This declaration also confirms that businesses and property owners can require the wearing of face masks onto their business and or property. Such cloth face masks can be fashioned from household items or made at home from common materials at low cost. So I think, unless I'm correcting, I think those are the items. The other item that we'll be looking at today is keeping our own government facilities open, which would include the library, recreation center, and golf course. So you've heard the changes in our declaration versus what the governor has. As I mentioned earlier, we now have 50% instead of 25 from a standpoint of people being able to open their business and wait on customers.
Mayor, my question for the attorney would be, in light of the county's attestation that we have less than 5 and we're going to 50%, do we need to change the wording in our declaration, or can we leave it?
We can check with it.
He's on right now, so Miguel, can you?
And the reason I bring that up is that we're still in a state of flux. Things go up and things go down. And in the event that I hope not, but in the event that we have 7 or 8 next week active cases, then we would be at 25%, and we would already have that covered in here. But I believe it would be covered automatically under the governor's order. So my question is, does our declaration need to be changed to read 50%, or can it stay at 25%?
Mr. Garza, hear that?
He's listening. I see little dots moving on the text message, so I'm waiting for a response.
I would think anything that's in our order pertaining to the governor goes along with whatever he does, so
Well,
we could change it now, but we could end up having to change it right back.
the next paragraph has wording to say that our order incorporates his by reference as if written word for word. And so,
Probably semantics.
yes.
Think he heard us, Kim?
Yes, sir, I think he did. Still waiting on a response.
While we're waiting, I would just voice my feeling that in terms of the daytime curfew for kids under 17, we would do well to keep it to the end of this declaration, the 18th.
He
That
did
will
re-
be
Go ahead.
That will be close to the end of school, and that was our intent from the beginning, was to carry out while they were normally in school.
Well, also, I think we said last meeting that we want to wait till the 18th and see what happens as far as additional cases and that kind of thing, to better reflect
Right.
how we can address each issue.
But with the judge's decision of less than 5, I mean, how does that affect us?
It doesn't really.
It
I mean,
should-
it affects us in that we have to go along with the county and the governor's order, and it's automatically 50%.
So the city attorney responded. He says the section added about incorporating would cover, and he says also order number 12. The effective immediately and continuing through May 18th, the city hereby adopts the provisions of Executive Order GA 18 issued by Governor Greg Abbott. They're incorporated herein by reference as if written word for word. For clarity, nothing of this declaration is intended to impact the provisions related to the continuation of the local state of disaster as specified in this 7th declaration. So it does follow, whether it's 25 or 50, we're going to go with what the governor's order mandates.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, since you brought up the curfew, we'll address it first.
Somebody needs to mute.
Stand it up until the 18th of
And so I would disagree with that. I think that it would need to be disbanded right now. I don't really see the need to continue that on for 18 more days. Our whole reason that we did this is the chief gave us information that he was having a hard time with kids congregating, and we have had this in place for, 4 weeks? So hopefully within that time, the kids and their parents and everyone else has realized the seriousness of this, and I think that we should disband this.
But you got to understand, Michelle, it's still, if they were in school, it'd still be the school year's time.
No, I understand.
Well, why,
I understand, but everything's
what's
different.
too-
Everything has changed.
No,
It's not school time anymore.
Well, that's your opinion.
It is, so,
That's your opinion. My opinion is that all this is moving too quick. And I think that the governor just opened a can of worms. That's just my personal feeling.
right.
And I'm like John, I think we ought to at least extend it to the 19th or 18th of this month.
Just to remind you all that we went with curfew at the request chief of police. And this week, we talked to him again, and he said it's still his opinion, because there's still some gathering at the parks, different places of these kids, and it's still a problem, and he would like to keep it going at least for another 2 or 3 weeks. So I go strong on what the chief's recommendation is. He's the one that's out there with his people, seeing what's going on.
So do we have a plan after, I mean, whenever we do away with this curfew, what's our plan?
So it's just going to be properly educating the community that you still need to continue proper hygiene, social distancing, masks if possible. I mean, that's all.
I mean, from the beginning, this is self-responsibility. I mean, everybody needs to,
It is, but this is an opportunity to allow just an extra 2 weeks. I mean, I understand that some of the council wants to disband the curfew. My thing is that we do have testing set in place tomorrow for Medina County. So they're going to run people through the testing phase, be able to give us an opportunity to wait to see what kind of numbers we get back. Why not just extend it an additional 2 more weeks? Again, like Councilman Villa said, it's during, if, for example, say the school was still in place, we still have packets out there, kids are still focused on homework, et cetera. So, I mean, it's just a precaution that we like to take. And I will tell you, since the curfew was put in place, we have noticed that certain individuals are off the streets. We did notice that, so that allows us to be able to focus on other issues. So once we start, again, the governor has opened it up to, I believe, 50%. So that's just going to create more of a perception that, hey, it's okay to be out there. So that's our thing. We just want to continue to try to mitigate it and just hold it off a little longer. Once May 18th comes around, we could totally reevaluate it, see what numbers we have pending from the test.
And the other thing I guess I have a hard time with is what other cities are doing this with their youth that have a curfew during the day hours? I mean, everybody else seems to be able to comply and make it work. I just, and we did address it, and we did do something about it, and hopefully during that period of time, the kids, like I said, the kids and their parents realized the importance of this, and y'all were able to realize some relief with that. But it can't stay in place forever, and we all knew that it wasn't.
We're not saying forever. We're just asking
No.
for 2 additional weeks. I don't know what other cities are doing. All I'm saying is that what Hondo's doing is this is what plan has worked for us, and it doesn't really hurt to extend it an additional 2 weeks to see just what the outcome is versus something does happen and who's liable at that point. We at least try to make our recommendation to y'all.
Right.
Of course, our recommendation sits on
And-
y'all's hands, but I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
And I guess, in just looking at the information that's being handed down to us from the president and then to the governor and then to our county judge, I mean, all these people are moving forward. I mean, things are opening up. And so this information that's coming down is obviously in that positive direction. So today, our county judge enabled us to move into the 50% occupancy. So he just didn't make that. I mean, obviously the data supports it.
Yeah.
And so that's just where I would take a stand. I would say follow the governor's orders, the county judge's orders, and let's just start to slowly move into that.
I understand you.
The thing is, Michelle, it's not moving slowly. It's moving too quick.
Well, there's a lot of educated, smart people making these
Well,
decisions.
there's a lot of educated, smart people doing, stating different opinions than what the governor says and what the president says. Now, do you know that Texas is down at 47 when it comes to testing? There's 29 million people in Texas. 300,000 have been tested. That's 1% of the population of Texas.
Well,
You know,
if we get into that situation and it's warranted,
All this data is not right. Who are you gonna believe?
well,
That's your opinion, and I'm expressing my opinion.
so I guess if we get into that situation where it's warranted, where we need to come back and revisit and pull back on this, we do.
Well, that's the recommendation of the chief. Let's just wait until May the 18th, and then we come back and see if it's working. He says that it's still not working. Kids are still gathering. And you're saying that parents need to be responsible. Yes, they need to be responsible, but the thing is, people aren't being responsible. And that's the recommendation that the chief is saying.
Well, 2 comments. First of all, we are where we are because of the restrictions we placed in the city.
Correct.
And in the county. And part of it is the curfews that we put in. The other comment I want to make, I know that here for a while, sounds like the police department's going to be shorthanded due to circumstances beyond their control, and they're going to be spread pretty thin, and I think any way we can help them, like the curfew, is going to help them control the situation. Other comments from the rest of the council?
We were here this last two meetings, Mayor, and here we are again with different opinions and different concerns, and, you know, I will have to say, I do have to agree with Ann Michelle as far as, I mean, we got to move forward, and it seems like everybody else is, and if we were just told that the county has only 5 active cases, and we're up to 50% now. So,
Well, there's still 19 cases outstanding that we don't know the results of that are being tested.
well, see, and that's another thing is like, I mean, I've heard different numbers, and you call other people and they give you different numbers, and I think that there's some of us here in this room that really, how should I say, not that we can't really go with the figures that we're getting, because, you know, there's different figures out there. But now, I mean, we're up at,
If we can't go with the figures that we're getting from the county, why should we go with the figures that we're getting from the state?
you don't have to.
Either way.
We don't have to.
Which way you gonna go?
You don't have to.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, you've already said it, that the governor's wrong, so that's your opinion, like you said
That's my
earlier,
opinion.
Johnny.
I think the governor
And-
opened a can of
well-
worms, and I'll say it now and I'll say it tomorrow.
That's your right, and
Because
that's
for
your
one thing,
opinion.
he's
My
opened-
opinion is
He's
that,
opened
that,
phase-
that
he's opened he's opened phase 1 until the 18th. What happens in phase 1, we're not gonna have any data until the end of the month. So how is he gonna open phase 2 on the 18th where he doesn't have the data for the first 18 days of the month? Stop and think.
Well, I'd still say that we need to strongly go with our own police chief's.
I
opinion,
agree.
And the fact that he's out there and he's the one that knows what's going on. And 18 days, I think we can live with that.
I think
He's taking all the power that what are we doing sitting here? He's taking all the power that we can agree on or disagree on our declarations, but then again, what we do have the say-so, we're not doing it. What are we here for?
you know, I'm looking at this, and I'm with Ann Michelle and Eric. You know, the 8:30 to 3:30, you know, I think it needs to be done away with. You know, the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., yeah, keep it, you know, keep them off the street at night. But, I mean, that's my opinion.
Can I add something, Mayor? Sure. Also, just take into consideration, that's totally fine. If that's the decision that the council wants to take, totally fine. Y'all have heard our recommendation, and let's hope, God forbid, that something doesn't happen. But another thing to add too is understand that we are currently facing what you consider a meat shortage. So you lift the restrictions, you're gonna have people start pouring into the local stores. You're gonna see kids in the local stores, and then you're going to risk an opportunity to have the spread if it's already in there. So, I mean, that's just something to take into consideration. We're not done by far, but if that's what y'all want to look into, then we'll just have to obey whatever decision y'all make.
All right, let's move on to the next item, which is the keeping closed our city facilities. Davis, you want to comment on that?
So Mayor, a group of us met, it was myself, you, the Emergency Management Coordinator, who's Lieutenant Garza, Chief of Police, here who's sitting next to me, Chief Valenzuela, and our Public Works Director, who has the largest amount of our specific staff. And we discussed whether or not to go ahead and open all the city facilities back to customers and providing in-lobby services or to continue with the way that we're providing services now up till the 18th. And the recommendation that we came back with was to propose to continue to leave it to where we're providing the services now. There has not been an interruption in services provided to people with the exception of the golf course and the rec center. If somebody wants a library book, they can call in and request a library book. The staff will go pull it, check it out, and then set it on, provide curbside service, basically. And the golf course, I had a lengthy conversation both yesterday and again today with Jerry Busby, and he says, yes, he can meet technically the requirements of the governor's order with some additional planning on his part, that the thing that would be the most difficult is the touchless payment. Unlike a lot of the golf courses around, we don't have where you can go online and schedule tee times and pay for things online. So we would be having a staff member actually have to process some type of payment and not have a way to do a touchless payment, which is one of those things that's recommended. He said he would feel more comfortable if we waited till the 18th, just because that way we know what happens as we start to reopen up and people start moving around. And then the other one is the rec center. And of course, the rec center, if you open the rec center, you're going to have a lot of people. And as we've talked about previously, one of the main forms of spread of this illness is through respiration. Typically, people who are in your recreation center are working out. And so you have high potential to have an influx of potential cases, maybe by a silent carrier. One thing I do want to note is that even though the county is doing testing tomorrow, and I encourage anyone who has symptoms to call in and try to get scheduled for that, that is the fact of the matter is that they're only testing people who have symptoms still. We're not doing any testing to identify any silent carriers. And so we have not had an interruption in services. People are still able to pay their bills, process permits, get plan reviews, do development team meetings. We've continued to do planning and zoning. We've continued to have council meetings. So again, our recommendation goes, again, we understand we are being conservative. And we are saying we want to make sure, because we do have to us, this is no different than a restaurant providing drive-up services. If you have an opportunity to protect your employees through providing that kind of service, then we felt that we owed some level of responsibility to those employees. So our recommendation is at this time to leave city facilities operating as they are until the 18th. And we know more about what happens as we open up, especially since we've gone from 25% to 50% in less than 24 hours.
Council comments?
Yes, I agree with the recommendation that Kim's given us to keep all our facilities closed until the 18th of May and see what, and bring it back up then and see what happens. You know, it's the facilities are just like the curfew. You know, these are the only things that we can actually vote on and pass as a council, and we're not doing this. We're here. I feel like I'm here like a puppet, that we have to do everything. That this is the only thing that we can agree on, and we're here just on the basis of what Governor Abbott and the judge and everybody else is saying. We're here to protect the city of Hondo. We're not here to protect the state of Texas. That's just my opinion. And that's why we have these people here. We have the chief recommending the curfew, and according to what I'm hearing, I don't think we're going to follow the recommendations of the chief. And probably they're not going to follow the recommendations of the city manager. So that's just my opinion.
So if we were to keep the facilities closed till the 18th, what are we doing from now to the 18th to rev up to open up? Are we going to be proactive in doing the things that we need to do at the golf course? And
Absolutely. And if Governor Abbott and his Open Texas is correct, then we won't see an influx in cases. So we'll probably move to phase 2, which will relax some of the stipulations that are required of us right now. But if it goes in the opposite direction, then we're not having to pull back again and try to re-sanitize all the facilities that we've spent the last couple of weeks sanitizing. So we're at a point where we're looking to move into reopening, and we're not the only city that's facing this right now. I have looked at a couple of other cities, and they're continuing to operate the same way we are and doing a slow open or a soft open and opening some of those facilities at a different pace than others. And I think that it's all going to depend on the data of the next couple of weeks. Now, if the data of the next couple of weeks, hopefully, everybody else is right, and we're taking a very conservative approach, and we're ready to move in and not have an influx of cases, then I say we open back up to normal operations and go from there with the details that are outlined for employers and individuals that are in the Open Texas book. If it's the opposite direction, then we made a good decision. Either way, I think it's a good decision. So I hope that answers the question.
It does.
May I say something, Mayor? Even though I feel like the recommendation of the chief and the recommendation of our city manager, I still feel that by the end of phase one, we're still not going to have the data to go into phase two. So I just don't understand how people could think that by the 18th, everything's going to be opened up. We're not going to have the data for phase one by the 18th. It's going to come until afterwards. And then phase two's coming up. And I hope all of you are prove me wrong at the end of this, but I hope in a month or two, everybody's going to say, Johnny was wrong. Okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's just my opinion. And I feel for everybody. And the thing is, nobody's following protocol. Not the parents, not the kids, nobody, even when we had the declarations, they weren't following them. According to the chief, he's the one, and his people are the ones that are out there day in and day out.
Well, I'm concerned about even after the 18th, how you would,
I'm concerned about that too.
how you would protect, say, the library especially. How in the world are you going to keep that sanitized and all, open it up and where people wouldn't be exposed? Same thing probably with the rec center. Well, the golf course could probably do it. Even with the golf course, that's pretty big stress on the two people we would have out there on a daily basis to keep up with these golfers and keep everything sanitized and all that. So I'm not, I'm worried about what we'd even do after the 18th as far as our own.
I think this goes back also to Councilman Vela's question, and if I could add, Mayor. So say everything goes swimmingly and we have no huge influx or even medium influx of additional cases, and we look to reopen the library. I would not say it is business as usual, because as you could read from the Open Texas report, it clearly states that sections of buildings, libraries and museums that are hands-on should not be open to the general public yet. And so, as we know, our children's section, for instance, is very tactile. It is very hands-on. That's part of why it was built the way it was. So we're going to have to keep sections of the library restricted. And what I would also say is that we'll probably have to do some type of come to the front desk, tell us what books you want, and have us go pull them, because otherwise I don't know a way, short of a librarian following a person around a building, to sanitize every single book that's touched in the building. So we're going to have to modify some operations, and we are thinking those things through. Okay, how do we open up and what people are referring to as the new norm? It isn't that we've taken the time through the last 6 weeks or however long this has been, because I've lost track of time at this point, that we're just sitting around and saying, well, we want to stay closed forever because, we want to make sure we're all safe. That isn't the case. We're trying to come up with creative ways to still provide services. That's why we're doing the, curbside book service, because they went in and they sanitized all those books. And as those books come back into us, they're being re-sanitized. And we're holding them for a period of time before they're put back on the shelf to be checked out. So we are taking those measures and thinking about those things, how we're going to continue into the next chapter of this progression.
Any other comments on the facilities?
So are we taking payments here at City Hall?
We are.
And so are they touchless payments?
No,
Okay. And so,
but we have put in protocols for staff, and staff are using a window, and what's passed through,
Yeah.
they sanitize after every single transaction. We would have to have people going into the golf course where there's no barrier between them, or into the clubhouse where there's no barrier. And yes, we could put up a barrier
Right.
around where the cubby is for that, but again, that would take some time for construction, and probably by the time it's constructed, we're back to the 18th. The additional thing is that when we take cash payments or anything here, any transaction that's handled here at City Hall or at the police department, if for some reason the police department passes paper back and forth, they sanitize their hands, and when we reconcile the books every day, the person who's counting the cash is using gloves and then sanitizes her desk and everything she's touched afterwards.
right. So we had on here several weeks ago to open up the golf course, and we all decided not to at that time, mainly because of projects that
Jerry
the
was
golf
doing,
course manager
correct.
has going on, correct? So he knew that, city staff knew that this was coming, so to put up a plexiglass or a shield, I mean, you say it's going to take till the 18th, I would probably disagree, but.
I'm
so-
saying it's dependent upon materials and things, but
So if we follow the governor's orders, which I very much agree that we should, and he specifically names golf courses to be open, and I know it's a city-owned golf course, and so we...
Public golf.
Right, so I know that it's a city-owned golf course, and we have that choice. But that was on Monday, and so we need to be preparing, and like Bobby said, coming up with a plan and ramp up to
and I agree with that.
open up these facilities.
And I agree with that.
So I do not see one reason why our golf course should not be open.
Okay.
I mean, it
Give me
is,
a good reason why it should be open.
well, number one, the governor stated it, and,
No, your personal opinion, give me a good reason why the golf course should be open.
so he laid out the rules. So if we
I'm not
take
talking
those
about-
rules,
I'm
well,
not talking about the governor, because we don't fall in the governor's. This is something that we can decide. You give me a good reason why we should open the golf course.
so we
Your
take the
personal-
rule,
Your personal opinion.
now you want to listen? So you take the rules that were given to us, lined out, and our golf course manager explains those to the patrons that come out there. I do not believe, and I think that Jerry would agree with this, that we're going to have an influx of people that are wanting to just storm the clubhouse. These groups of 4 people follow the rules, and we're able to open up our facility. It's what we do. It's part of being a city, and I understand her recommendations perfectly as far as the library, the rec center, here at City Hall. We need to come up with a good plan, and they're working on that. But as far as the golf course, I really don't see a reason to have that not open to the public.
Well, in my opinion, Michelle, I think you and the governor are playing politics. This isn't about politics. It's about what's best for the citizens of Hondo.
Mayor, well, the golf manager still is recommending that we keep it closed because of the difficulty in trying to monitor the golfers on the course and at the clubhouse. So he's still recommending that we keep it closed. Again, a senior staff member.
Mayor, I'll throw in my 2 cents because in anticipation and preparation for this meeting, I read and reread the governor's Open Texas book, and I anticipated that we would talk about the golf course. So I looked specifically at the things pertaining to golf course, and I wondered, okay, why can't we meet that? And if we can't, does it mean we need more people, or does it mean we need stronger education of our golfers? I wonder if we can, the special considerations for a golf course is, say, clean and sanitize golf carts and push carts between uses, except for members of the same household, no more than 1 individual per golf court. So I can ride with my wife or my son if he lives with me. Clean and disinfect driving range golf balls between use. Okay. Ensure separation of at least 6 feet between golfers on the driving range. That's just safe. Those things, if we can't do them now, we need to be able to do them very soon. And we need to be able to handle payment and tee times. Other than the way we've been doing it. So my thought was, this is part of the soft opening. I'm for keeping the library, rec center, and things like that closed. But if indeed we can't handle the golf course opening right now, then we really need to get on the stick and be ready. And just as a side note, I'm glad we don't have tennis courts anymore.
I agree with Mr. Matt, 100%.
Okay, the other item that I guess we can discuss is the wearing of masks. The way this is written, we're recommending strongly that face coverings be worn in the categories that I already read. I do see where San Antonio maintained a requirement that face coverings be worn, recognizing the fact that anybody that wasn't wearing a face mask couldn't be fined or put in jail, but they kept a requirement in their declaration that face masks be worn, especially in these areas that we have required in the past. So that's something we can still do, but again, the chief couldn't fine anybody or anything if he found people not wearing masks. So that's still an alternative that we have.
What about, I noticed that San Antonio also did stay at home and work safe. Why is it that they can do the stay at home and if I'm correct, I think the governor did away with that.
No, I think you're incorrect. It's very difficult to see through everything, but it sounds like
Everything's
he's
fishy.
maintaining the stay-at-home order in his previous declaration. It's just convoluted now with all the other things that he's allowing to happen.
Yeah, on the mask wearing, Mayor, I'm still all for it, and I was all for it, but even then, we couldn't get the people to follow protocol, and when we had the jail time and the fine at $1,000, they still didn't do it. So what would be the difference now to do the face mask if they don't wear them? There's nothing we can do, according to the governor, because the governor says requires, doesn't say require, it says, consider, or we urge you to wear them, but it's not something that has to be done anymore.
Well, I'm only mentioning that because what we had in the previous order, we could keep in that order like it is as far as mandating that they had to wear masks. We just could not enforce that by any type of penalty. I'm just throwing that out for your consideration.
I like the current wording in the proposition before us. This declaration strongly recommends the use of cloth face coverings when visiting hospitals, medical and veterinarian clinics, and restaurants. It is strongly recommended that face masks also be used by restaurant workers as well as employees of all essential businesses that have face-to-face contact with the public, including grocery stores. It is also strongly recommended that a face mask be used whenever a person leaves their home or essential business. This declaration also confirms that business and property owners can require the wearing of face coverings onto their business and or property. Such cloth face masks can be fashioned from household items or made at home from common materials at low cost. This, as it's written, accomplishes our concerns, I think,
Everything.
and doesn't get us into a can we or can't we.
Right.
It's just there, I'm telling y'all, if you wanted to keep that other language in there, we could, we just couldn't enforce it. Does
So
that-
that's all we can do is just recommend instead of requiring.
Well, you know, I think our wording is fine. I'm just saying
Yeah,
we could keep the stronger wording
We,
in there.
we can't, at this time, we can't do any better than that.
Is there any other areas of the declaration anybody wants to talk about?
Well, look, I think we've all kind of shared our thoughts and opinions and concerns and, you know, I, for one, am still on the fence on this curfew deal. And I need to make a decision personally which way we need to go. So, Chief, Kim, Mayor, somebody, give me reasons why we should not slowly allow and do away with the curfew.
Well, I'll tell you, my biggest thing is because we just don't know yet. Why take that chance? What's an additional 2 weeks
So-
gonna take? What's it gonna hurt? Remember.
So nobody knows, I mean,
Remember, we're doing
that's
500
that's everywhere. Nobody knows, but yet we have other places that are slowly opening other areas and don't even have a curfew. And they're slowly opening. You know what I'm saying? I want some real strong reasons why I should vote to go ahead and keep the curfew for an additional 18 days.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't think that, what I'm trying to tell you is that we're doing 500 testing tomorrow, only for the people that meet the requirements. We still have silent carriers out there. We don't know who they are. Okay, we're opening up to 50%, okay? Doing away with the curfew, we're allowing the kids to be back out on the streets, okay? We don't know what the data is going to show in the next 2 weeks. So from here to there, what chance do we take, is what I'm saying.
And if I,
You're going to see an influx of kids back out there. Believe me, I know, I have kids as well. But my thing is, what's an additional 2 weeks gonna hurt? Otherwise, the kids would be at school right now.
Eric,
How many, excuse me, Kim, we've been on this curfew deal. How many problems or how many times have you had an active officer go physically and have to attend to some of these juveniles that we're talking about?
As far as making contact with the juveniles?
Making contact because of something they're doing wrong or because they're not following protocol, whatever.
So from after we implemented the curfew, I will tell you from the 22nd to the 26th, that's the only data I was able to pull at the time. For curfews, after we started working on it, we had a total of everything, just curfew or just overall?
No,
Do we have social gatherings, mass gatherings?
just the curfew that we're talking about.
Curfew, according to Patrol, they've noticed that there was an increase of the decrease of people being out on the streets as far as juveniles. We had to do physically, hands-on, we had one on the 24th, okay, just one. Other than that, Patrol has reported that the curfew has helped mitigate that. as
So
far
no
as kids
citations?
being put away.
Correct? No citations,
No
anything?
citations. Now, to include total gatherings, mass burials, city park closures, inside dining, warning citations, total, we had 25 violations just from the 22nd to the 26th. And most of that is self-initiated or call-ins.
Well, Chief, what you just said on the
public
curfew aspect, you said you had one, so that means that the curfew declaration that we have in place has been working.
What about social distancing? Any citations or any increase?
I don't know about citations on social distancing, social gatherings. We've had a total, I guess, again, of 25. I would have to go back and break it down as far as every,
Okay, so that's included in that?
I'm sorry?
It's included in the 25?
Yes, everything is
Yeah.
total combined is 25.
Okay.
Of course, we asked the chief in the beginning on the curfew and on the gathering to have a enforcement that wasn't a friendly type enforcement. And I think that's what they've tried to do.
Eric, if I could go back and add the comment I was going to add when you asked for a logical reason why. Our youth tend to think, and we were all young and inexperienced once, youth tend to think they're invincible anyway. And so they may not think about the consequences of what they're doing today and how it may impact them tomorrow. There are youth that are shown to be carriers, or there are youth in other states. I'm not going to speak to Texas data because Texas data today has been under discussion heavily at this council meeting. But I'm going to say if you look not just at the United States, but worldwide, the data has reflected that youth are just as susceptible to this illness and may infect others without even knowing that they're infecting others. And I don't think 2 weeks in the grand scheme of a lifetime is a lot to ask. And I think, again, it is because they are, the governor talks about seniors and those of us who are immunocompromised being at-risk populations, but I think our youth are equally at risk just because of the mindset. How many times do you do things when you're young and carefree and think I'm invincible? And I think that's sometimes that, I agree with what Ann Michelle says, that there needs to be some personal responsibility from parents as well. But typically in the month of May, parents rely, and this is just the truth, parents rely on school districts to provide that parental oversight. And we aren't living in a regular time. Things have changed. And right now, I think we're stepping into the school district role and providing that parental oversight for a lot of these kids. And I know that when the curfew first came out, going back to something that I think Johnny or Mayor mentioned, I did get a lot of phone calls or text messages or inquiries on social media saying, hey, how does this curfew work? Because parents were almost appreciative that because some of them are essential workers, they're not home, they're not able to stay at home and make sure the kids are following the guidelines and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Social distancing, wearing masks, not just going around, walking around Walmart. A good example of that when Ms. Kruger took some of the Yak kids on one of their trips and they were asked, what do y'all do for fun in Hondo? They say they all go hang out at the Walmart and walk around. So, I think what the chief is trying to say is, let us see what the data prevails to say over the next 2 weeks. We haven't done a lot of testing in our county. Saturday's testing is going to be like 4 times, I think, the amount of testing that we've done total in the county. Total in the county. And that's not a number I'm making up. That's a number that's provided by the public health office here. Mayor and I sit in on those calls, and I think they've had less than 180 some people total tested in our county. And so I'm just saying, I can understand Chief's position, and we're just making recommendations. This council ultimately has to make the decisions about city facilities. Ultimately, you have to make the decisions about curfew. Ultimately, you have to make the decisions about masks. And staff is going to support whatever council decides. That's our job. But we sat down as a collective and cohesive group, and we came before you. And these recommendations are not easy for us to make either. I have a 7-year-old who's climbing the walls that I would be happy for him to go be able to hang out with his friends. But as a parent, I have to make good choices too. And not everybody is in a situation like my son is in. And we're coming to you and just trying to make the best recommendations that we can make on behalf of the citizens and the employees here at the city that we're responsible for.
I've got a question, Kim. When they do the testing tomorrow in Divine, what's the turnaround time where they have the actual results of the people that did get tested in Divine?
I don't know that answer, Johnny. I've heard 72 hours, but I do know that that was one of the things, I think, Mayor, that came up on our call today, that they had 2 people who had been sent to San Antonio for testing from our county, and they weren't sure what site they'd went at. So there's one site in San Antonio where you can get the results, they said, in 2 hours, but there's other sites in San Antonio that it's taking over 2 weeks. So it just depends.
So we actually don't know what the turnaround is.
For this particular one, I do not know. I don't think that's been something that's been discussed as part of the protocol with us.
That's something that we should know about, because it falls between today and the 18th of May. And what's,
We do know that every day for the last week and going on for how long, there's testings being taken in these different counties. So if you figure 500 in each county for, say, 10 or 15 counties around, that's a lot of tests that are going to be evaluated.
well, it would be good to know more or less what the turnaround is on the results of these testings that are gonna be done in Medina County. Because that's gonna reflect on what we decide to do come the 18th.
Well, that's what we've been saying all afternoon, is that we want to wait and see what happens in the next 18 days as to the testing and the results and how many positives and all
But then,
that.
yes, Mayor, but then again, if we don't know what the results are gonna be on these testings that are being done in Divine, you know, is it gonna be a week or 2 weeks? Is it gonna, are they gonna come after phase one is over with or before phase one is over with? That's something that I feel that we need to know.
Mayor, if I may add, the lieutenant just forwarded me a message, and it states that Texas reports most deaths in a day from COVID-19 as Governor Abbott prepares to drop the stay-at-home order. So that's just another thing to add. I mean, as he's talking about releasing the stay-at-home, he reports the most deaths in just a day.
Yes,
And that
there's
came out
more
on May 1st.
deaths and ones that showed positive since this started. Yesterday was the highest ever.
It was 50 deaths and as of yesterday, a day before, he reopened everything, and there was over 1,000 cases in one day, which was yesterday, over 1,000 cases since April the 8th. We had the biggest day of deaths and cases yesterday.
So Johnny, I have an answer. I reached out to Keith Lutz, who's the Emergency Management Coordinator for the county and who's coordinating this effort in Divine. He said it should be in about 48 hours from Saturday's testing.
Well, that's good.
Mayor,
Keyword is should.
Yeah, I know.
Mayor,
At least we're not sitting here waiting, okay, it's gonna be 2 weeks before we get the results. Maybe we'll get them in
Oh,
48 or 72 hours.
so they're also not doing 500 testing. I'm not sure where that number came from. They're doing 30 to 50.
There you go.
Also 500. Maybe that's the ones that they're letting call in with their symptoms. That's not very many.
Maybe they have 500 call-ins, but what I understand, they're gonna be doing the screen first, and then you fall under the category of a high fever or a cough, or then you're gonna get tested. Otherwise, you're not gonna get tested.
Mayor, I want to go to the curfew question. I worked with kids for 50-plus years, and you can't do that if you don't love them, but you also come to understand them. And part of the territory, part of the nature of the animal is that they're not yet adults. And as was reflected earlier, sometimes their decisions are not what they would make even 10 years later. And we do rely on regulation, part of which is being involved in school and everything. With that being said, and with us needing to move on, there's a couple of three things that we have questions on here. So I would move that we adopt order number 4 as it's written, which means that we keep the daytime curfew.
So you're going to separate out the whole declaration.
No, I'm saying that my feeling is that it's going to be hard for us to vote on the entire declaration unless we resolve some of the interior points.
So can I have,
There's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
so can we pass this 7th mayoral declaration and make a motion to pass that with changes and note those changes? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we pass this seventh mayoral declaration as written with the changes to be made, that the curfew would be disbanded on May the 1st, which is today, and that our golf course would open May the 2nd, which is Saturday.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any further discussion?
My only comment is that reflecting previous discussion, this is going to be really difficult.
Motion and second, do we have any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Motion carries 3-2. Now, I would like to say on my behalf, first of all, my reasons for my stances on most of this is because I'm more concerned about the people out there and their potential to be being infected than I am about taking care of some of our friends and relatives and all to keep some of these things open or whatever has come out today. I also like to mention, one person said today that my decision has been based on me being an endangered person. Never in my tenure as mayor have I ever made a decision that had to do with my own personal thoughts. So I want to announce to y'all that I will be looking at this over the weekend and making a decision whether on Monday morning I'm going to veto the action taken by the council this afternoon. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.